Right now, as you're watching this, millions of people around the world are stuck in the same routine they were in yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. They wake up, check their phones, rush through breakfast, complain about traffic, drag themselves to work, count down the hours until they can go home, collapse on the couch, scroll through social media, and fall asleep, only to repeat the exact same cycle tomorrow. Success. Success. And then they wonder why their lives never change. They wonder why they feel empty, why they feel like they're just existing instead of truly living. But here's what I want you to understand right now. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your habits. Every single outcome in your life, every result you see, every condition you experience is a direct reflection of the patterns you've been running day after day, week after week, year after year. Your habits are not just things you do, they are who you are. They are the invisible force that shapes your destiny. I'm going to share something with you that might shock you. The person you are right now is not your true self. The person you see in the mirror every morning is a collection of automated behaviors that you've been rehearsing for so long that you think it's your identity. But it's not. It's just a program that's been running in the background of your mind. And the beautiful thing about programs is that they can be rewritten. Think about this for a moment. When you were born, you didn't come into this world with a habit of procrastination. You didn't arrive with a tendency to make excuses or the pattern of giving up when things get difficult. These are learned behaviors that became automatic through repetition. And if they were learned, they can be unlearned. If they were created, they can be recreated. The science is clear on this. Your brain has something called neuroplasticity, which means it can reorganize itself throughout your entire life. Every time you repeat a behavior, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with that behavior. Every time you choose to do something different, you begin to create new pathways. This is why change feels so difficult at first, and why it becomes easier the more you practice it. But here's where most people get it wrong. They focus on the big dramatic changes. They want to transform their entire life overnight. They want to go from being completely out of shape to running marathons, from being broke to being wealthy, from being shy to being confident, all in a matter of weeks. And when they can't sustain these massive changes, they give up and convince themselves that they're not capable of change. The truth is, transformation happens in the small, seemingly insignificant moments. It happens when you choose to get up 5 minutes earlier instead of hitting the snooze button. It happens when you choose to drink water instead of soda. It happens when you choose to read one page of a book instead of mindlessly scrolling through your phone. These tiny decisions might seem meaningless in the moment, but they compound over time to create extraordinary results. I want you to imagine your life as a massive ship sailing across the ocean. If you want to change the direction of that ship, you don't need to make a dramatic, sharp turn that might cause it to tip over. You make small, consistent adjustments to the rudder, and over time, the ship ends up in a completely different destination. Your habits are that rudder. Small changes in your daily behaviors create massive changes in your life's direction. Let me tell you about the power of starting small. When I first understood this concept, I was overwhelmed by how much I wanted to change about my life. I wanted to exercise every day, eat perfectly, read for hours, meditate, journal, learn new skills, build better relationships, and advance my career all at the same time. But trying to change everything at once was like trying to lift 1,000 pounds when I could barely lift 50. I was setting myself up for failure. So I started with one simple habit, making my bed every morning. That's it, just making my bed. It took me less than 2 minutes, and it seemed almost ridiculously small compared to all the other changes I wanted to make. But something interesting happened. When I made my bed, I felt a sense of accomplishment. First thing in the morning, I had completed my first task of the day, and that gave me momentum to tackle the next one. More importantly, making my bed created what researchers call a keystone habit. This is a habit that naturally triggers other positive behaviors. When my room looked organized, I felt more motivated to keep the rest of my space clean. When my space was clean, I felt more focused and productive. When I felt productive, I was more likely to make other positive choices throughout the day. Within a few weeks, that simple habit of making my bed had rippled out into other areas of my life. I started waking up earlier because I wanted to complete my morning routine. I began eating healthier because I wanted to maintain the positive momentum I had created. I started exercising because I felt like someone who takes care of themselves. All of this from a 2-minute habit that seemed insignificant at first. This is the compound effect in action. Small, consistent actions repeated over time create extraordinary results. But here's the catch. The compound effect works both ways. Just as positive habits compound to create positive results, negative habits compound to create negative results. Every time you choose to complain instead of finding solutions, you're reinforcing a pattern of victimhood. Every time you choose to avoid difficult conversations, you're strengthening a pattern of avoidance. Every time you choose immediate gratification over long-term benefit, you're programming yourself for mediocrity. The question isn't whether you're going to form habits. You already have habits. The question is whether your current habits are taking you toward the life you want or away from it. Are your habits serving your future self or sabotaging your potential? Are they moving you closer to your goals or further away from them? I want you to do something right now. I want you to think about your morning routine. What do you do from the moment you wake up until you leave your house? Really think about it. Do you immediately reach for your phone and start scrolling through social media? Do you rush through breakfast or skip it altogether? Do you leave the house feeling stressed and behind schedule? Or do you wake up with purpose, take care of your body, nourish your mind, and start your day with intention? Your morning routine sets the tone for your entire day. If you start your day reactive, scattered, and behind schedule, you'll likely spend the rest of your day in that same state. But if you start your day proactive, focused, and in control, you'll carry that energy with you throughout the day. The first hour of your day is like the first domino in a chain reaction. How it falls determines how all the other dominoes fall. This is why successful people are so protective of their morning routines. They understand that how they start their day determines how they live their life. They don't leave their mornings to chance or let external circumstances dictate their emotional state. They have a system, a set of habits that consistently put them in the right mindset to tackle whatever challenges the day might bring. But it's not just about mornings. Every moment of your day is an opportunity to choose who you want to become. When you're stuck in traffic, you can choose to get angry and frustrated, or you can choose to use that time to listen to educational content or practice breathing exercises. When a colleague annoys you, you can choose to gossip and complain, or you can choose to respond with patience and understanding. When you get home after a long day, you can choose to collapse on the couch and zone out, or you can choose to do something that moves you closer to your goals. These might seem like small choices, but they're actually identity-shaping moments. Every time you choose the higher road, you're voting for the person you want to become. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, growth over stagnation, contribution over consumption, you're literally rewiring your brain to become that person. This is where most people misunderstand change. They think change is about willpower and motivation. They think if they just get inspired enough, they'll be able to push through any obstacle and create the life they want. But willpower is finite. Motivation comes and goes. What lasts is identity. When you change your habits, you change your identity. And when you change your identity, your behaviors naturally align with who you believe yourself to be. Let me explain this with an example. Imagine two people who want to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first person says, "No, thank you, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No, thank you, I'm not a smoker." Which person do you think is more likely to succeed? The first person still identifies as a smoker who is trying to quit. The second person has changed their identity. They see themselves as a non-smoker, so declining a cigarette isn't a struggle. It's just being consistent with who they are. This is the power of identity-based habits. Instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, focus on who you want to become. Instead of saying, I want to lose weight, say, I want to become someone who takes care of their body. Instead of saying, I want to make more money, say, I want to become someone who creates value for others. Instead of saying, I want to be more confident, say, I want to become someone who honors their commitments to themselves. When you focus on identity change, your habits become a way of expressing who you are rather than something you have to force yourself to do. A writer doesn't struggle to write. They write because that's what writers do. An athlete doesn't struggle to train. They train because that's what athletes do. A leader doesn't struggle to make difficult decisions. They make difficult decisions because that's what leaders do. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your identity is not fixed. It's not something you're born with or something that's determined by your past. Your identity is simply the collection of beliefs you have about yourself. And beliefs can be changed. The way you change your beliefs about yourself is through evidence. And the way you create evidence is through your actions. Every time you do something, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you go to the gym, you're voting for the identity of someone who is fit and healthy. If you read a book, you're voting for the identity of someone who is intelligent and curious. If you help someone in need, you're voting for the identity of someone who is kind and generous. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to win the majority of your votes. This is why consistency is more important than perfection. Missing one workout doesn't make you unhealthy. Eating one unhealthy meal doesn't make you unhealthy. But consistently missing workouts and consistently eating unhealthy meals will eventually shape your identity in that direction. On the flip side, consistently showing up, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're not perfect, gradually shapes your identity in the direction you want to go. The beautiful thing about this process is that it creates a positive feedback loop. As you begin to see yourself differently, you naturally start behaving differently. As you start behaving differently, you begin to see different results. As you see different results, your belief in what's possible for you expands. As your belief expands, you're willing to take bigger risks and make bigger changes. This is how small changes compound into life transformation. But I want to be honest with you about something. This process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often deeply uncomfortable. When you start changing your habits, you're essentially declaring war on your old self. Your old self is going to fight back. It's going to try to convince you that change is too hard, that you're not the type of person who can do this, that you should just go back to the way things were because at least that was familiar. This internal resistance is normal and expected. It's not a sign that you're weak or that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're disrupting patterns that have been running for years or even decades. Your brain is wired to keep you safe. And to your brain, familiar equals safe, even when familiar is limiting your potential. The key is to expect this resistance and have a plan for dealing with it. When that voice in your head tells you to skip your workout, to stay in bed, to eat the junk food, to give up on your goals, you need to recognize it for what it is. The voice of your old identity trying to pull you back to who you used to be. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to obey it. You can acknowledge it and then choose to act in alignment with who you're becoming instead. This is where environment design becomes crucial. Your environment is constantly influencing your behavior, often without you realizing it. If you want to eat healthier, don't rely on willpower alone. Remove the junk food from your house and stock your kitchen with healthy options. If you want to read more, don't leave your books buried under a pile of papers. Put them somewhere visible and remove the distractions that compete for your attention. Your environment should make your good habits easier and your bad habits harder. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to drink more water, keep a water bottle on your desk. If you want to stop checking your phone so much, put it in another room or turn off notifications. Small changes to your environment can have a massive impact on your behavior. But environment isn't just about physical spaces. It's also about the people you surround yourself with. If you're trying to develop positive habits, but you're constantly around people who are negative, who complain all the time, who don't believe in growth and change, it's going to be much harder for you to maintain your new behaviors. You become like the people you spend the most time with, so choose your companions wisely. This doesn't mean you need to cut everyone out of your life, but it does mean you need to be intentional about who you give your time and energy to. Seek out people who are also committed to growth, who support your goals, who challenge you to become better. Join communities, find mentors, surround yourself with people who are living the kind of life you want to live. Remember, you're not trying to impress anyone or prove anything to anyone. You're trying to become the person you're capable of becoming. You're trying to honor your potential and live up to your possibilities. The people who matter will support you in this journey. The people who don't support you probably aren't the people you want to have in your life anyway. Now let's talk about the role of failure in this process. I want you to understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Every time you fail, you're learning. Every time you make a mistake, you're gathering information about what doesn't work, so you can adjust your approach. Every time you fall down, you're building the resilience and determination that will carry you through future challenges. The most successful people in the world are not the people who never fail. They're the people who fail forward. They're the people who learn from their mistakes and use those lessons to improve their approach. They understand that failure is feedback, not a judgment on their worth as a person. When you're changing your habits, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have days when you don't feel like doing what you know you should do. You're going to have moments when you fall back into old patterns. This is not a sign that you're weak or that you should give up. It's a sign that you're human and that you're attempting something difficult and worthwhile. The key is to have a plan for getting back on track quickly. Don't let one bad day turn into a bad week. Don't let one mistake turn into a reason to abandon your goals entirely. Instead, treat each setback as a learning opportunity. Ask yourself what caused the setback, what you can learn from it, and how you can prevent it from happening again in the future. This brings me to an important point about perfectionism. Perfectionism is not high standards. It's a form of self-sabotage. It's the belief that if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. It's the voice that tells you that if you miss one workout, you might as well not exercise at all. If you eat one unhealthy meal, you might as well abandon your diet entirely. If you make one mistake, you're a failure. Perfectionism keeps you stuck because it makes you afraid to start. It makes you afraid to try because you're afraid of not being perfect. But here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect to make progress. You just need to be consistent. You just need to show up, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're not at your best, even when you're not perfect. Progress is not about doing everything right all the time. Progress is about doing the right things most of the time. It's about getting back up when you fall down. It's about continuing to move forward even when you're moving slowly. It's about focusing on the direction you're going rather than the speed at which you're traveling. This is why I recommend tracking your habits rather than trying to track complex outcomes. Don't focus on how much weight you've lost. Focus on how many days you've exercised. Don't focus on how much money you've made. Focus on how many days you've worked on your skills or your business. Don't focus on how confident you feel. Focus on how many times you've done something that scared you. When you track your habits, you're focusing on the process rather than the outcome. You're focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't control. You're building evidence of your new identity. One day at a time, one decision at a time. But tracking alone isn't enough. You need to celebrate your progress along the way. Most people are so focused on the end goal that they forget to acknowledge the progress they're making. They forget to celebrate the small wins, the daily victories, the incremental improvements that are actually creating the transformation they want. Celebration is not just feel-good fluff. It's actually a crucial part of the habit formation process. When you celebrate your progress, you're reinforcing the neural pathways associated with your new behaviors. You're making your brain want to repeat those behaviors because they're associated with positive feelings. This doesn't mean you need to throw a party every time you complete a habit. It can be as simple as giving yourself a mental high five, taking a moment to acknowledge what you've accomplished, or sharing your progress with someone who supports you. The key is to make the celebration immediate and authentic.